Welcome back to Physics of Flight. I'm Danny Lindahl here with Robert McCall, and we're taking the shot shapes and disc selection from episode 1 and playing in the wind from episode 2 and applying it here on the course. Let's get started. So hole 1 is a 350-foot straight shot that finishes to the right. For me, this is going to be a hyzer release on an understable disc. This is my Lucid Maverick, it's a fairway driver. So when I throw it with that hyzer release, it's going to fly straight while it's turning and then finish to the right. Now because I have a right to left wind, I'm playing for a little bit more drop in the disc. So I'm throwing it just a little bit higher because as the disc turns over, the wind's going to be coming into the top of it and that's going to push it down, hopefully to settle right next to the basket. Lastly, a hyzer release on an understable disc is just going to be a more exaggerated hyzer flip. It's going to start on this hyzer angle and flip up to flat and probably flip all the way over. This is great for long distance shots that need to carry straight and then fade to the right. Robert here is going with a forehand. He's going with the shot shape that's a flat release with an overstable driver. This disc is going to fly straight while it's flat and then again finish to the right. He also has that right to left wind, so he's just playing for a little bit more height because it's going to drop just a little bit more than usual. Now he's left with about a 25-footer here and he naturally putts with a little bit of a hyzer. So he's trying to overcome that and throw it just as flat as possible because if the wind gets underneath the disc while he's putting, it's going to give him some lift. Me, I went a little bit past the basket. I've only got about 15 feet here, but I'm going uphill with a left to right wind. Again, I putt with a little bit of hyzer, so I'm just trying to give it a little bit more height because that wind coming into the top is going to drop it just a bit. Moving on to hole 3. Hole 3 is a bit over 500 feet, and there's really two options off the tee. The first shot can either go really far and end up a little bit left of the basket with some trees in the way, or you can go to the right side and have more of a straight shot at the basket, but it's going to be a little bit longer. So Robert's going for the maximum distance line. We have a left to right wind here. He's throwing a flat release on a straight disc. This is going to be a lot of distance because the wind is going to get underneath the disc and give it lift, and that's going to give it time to penetrate forward. Now if I have a left to right wind and I'm going for distance, I'm going to have a good time because I can throw that huge flex line. I can get the wind underneath the disc to get all the glide it can. I can throw it high and put it on a lot of anhyzer because it's going to have time to fade out with that extra height. The wind's going to lift it and carry it. It's going to go super far and it's only going to get knocked down at the very end. But by that time it will have flown hopefully super far. He's throwing his Ballista Pro here and he gets a good rip on this. He gets a lot of distance for sure. Me, I'm going for that placement shot out to the right side, so I'm going for a hyzer release on an overstable disc. This is one of my Fusion Defenders, and the wind is going to be coming into the top of this disc, and that's going to help it stick where it hits and be very accurate. Now because I didn't get as much distance as Robert off the tee, I have a little bit more work on the upshot. I have about 150 to 200 feet left, and I'm going with a Lucid Suspect here. Now again, I have those trees off to the left, so my shot is going to try to be out to the right side of the basket to give me a more open putt. I had sort of the right idea here, I just didn't quite put enough power on it and I ended up short left about 25 feet out of the basket. Now Robert here on his upshot, he has two choices. He can either go a forehand with a slammer or a backhand with his anvil. Now the forehand is going to end up closer to the basket if he pulls off the shot, but the backhand is going to be much more consistent. There's a lot more trees in the way of the forehand, and so the chances of that shot messing up are a lot greater. So he's playing for the high percentage shot and going with the anvil on a hyzer. Even though it's not going to be as close to the basket if he pulls it off, it's going to be a lot more consistent getting to that spot. So he's left here with about 25 feet. Like I said, I left my upshot a good bit short with my Lucid Suspect here. I've got a straddle out from behind this tree and I've got 25 feet or so, and I'm putting with a tailwind. Now I putt with a nose up and I tend to put a good bit of pace on my putts. So I'm trying to aim a little bit high and let the wind come into the back of my disc and suck the air out from underneath it and just drop it into the basket. Now Robert here is left with about 20 feet. He's got a left to right, a little bit of a headwind. So he's happy with the left to right because he does putt with that little bit of a hyzer, but with the nose up, he's trying to just control the lift and not let it blow past the basket. But it's Robert McCall with a Warden in his hands. It's going in the basket. Out here on the course, when I need to fight the wind, my go-to is a Defender. Here's what Anthony thinks about it.
The Defender is one of the best, most dependable discs out there on the market for fighting wind while still gaining you distance. With a speed 13 and a glide of 5, no matter what, you know this disc is going to go far. with a 0 turn and a fade of 3, it's gonna laugh at any winds. If there's a headwind and you throw this max power, it's not gonna flip over, it's not gonna roll on you, it's gonna fight through that, it's gonna fly straight, and then that 3 fade is gonna kick in. It is going to fade out nice and hard, nice and reliably. Whether you throw it on a hyzer release, it's gonna hold that hyzer line all the way into the ground and gain you a ton of distance. On a flat shot, it's gonna go straight, 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 and keep going straight, and then fading out at the very end. And on an anhyzer release, you are going to see some of the longest shots you've ever thrown. Throw this disc up nice and high, let the wind get under the flight plate and carry it over, and then that 3 fade is gonna kick in, and you're gonna get that maximum distance line. If you're looking for dependable distance and dependable accuracy in the winds, you gotta try out the Dynamic Discs Defender.
Hole 6 here has a low ceiling down the right side, but it's pretty open on the left, but there is OB to the left. So I'm taking the OB out of play. I'm going down the right side with a skip shot. Now to throw the skip shot, I'm throwing a hyzer release with an overstable disc, and I'm trying to make sure when it hits the ground on that left side, it still has a lot of forward momentum. That's going to carry it into that skip shot and keep it underneath those branches. And when I throw this shot, I don't quite put enough hyzer on it. I hit the gap I was looking for, but it just turned a little bit too much, flipped up to flat, and settled about 80 or 100 feet away from the basket. Robert here is going for a flat release on an understable disc. This is his Lucid Maverick, and he's got this one put out there really well. He throws it flat way up to the left side. We have a little bit of a headwind, a little bit of a left to right, and it's lifting the disc and getting it turned and making sure that it stays penetrating to the right and it doesn't have any danger of fading out to the left. So here I am for my upshot. I have my Lucid Suspect in my hands, and I could go with a backhand hyzer here, but because of that right to left wind, that's going to be underneath the disc on that upshot, and it's going to carry it and give it that lift offline. So I'm going with the forehand here because that's going to keep the wind into the top and help it settle right next to the basket. The #1 rule on an upshot is to keep the wind into the top of the disc. I'm going to try and keep that flight plate into the wind and just trust it to knock it down. It's really important to have a forehand and a backhand upshot in the wind. Robert here is left with about 40 feet. He's got a headwind putt with a little bit of an uphill. So he's trying to not let the disc glide past the basket, but that's going to prevent him from being too aggressive. So he's going to give this one a good chance to go in, but he's really not upset with taking a 3 on this hole. So here we are on hole 8. This is a 375-foot, fairly straight shot that needs to finish left at the end, and we have a tailwind. So Robert's throwing his Special Edition Explorer that's fairly seasoned on a hyzer release. The disc is going to stay flying straight while it's turning, and then it's going to have a gentle fade at the end. And we do have a tailwind, which means relative to the wind, the disc isn't flying as fast. So it's going to be easier to get that distance, and the disc is going to fly a little bit more stable, so he can rely on that Special Edition Explorer in the tailwind. Me, I'm going for a flat release with an overstable disc. This is a Lucid Getaway. Now, I don't usually throw a getaway for super overstable shots, but because of that tailwind taking a little bit of that speed off, I can trust it not to turn, and I know that it's going to fly straight and put me next to the basket. This one ended up just a little bit short of the basket. It's right at the circle's edge as well. So Robert here has got a tailwind putt about 25 feet. Because he's going to have the wind coming into the top of the disc with that hyzer release, he's got no worries running this. And of course, it's Robert with a Warden. Just jam.
Like we talked about with the flight plate, if that wind is getting underneath the flight plate, that's going to lift the putter sometimes over the basket, and now you're faced with the dreaded headwind putt coming back. So again, ideally, level is your best friend here. Maybe even a little nose up so you can play for a little bit of drop like you usually see in tailwinds.
For me, I've got about 30 feet left with my Warden, again a tailwind putt, so I'm just trying to put a little bit more pace, a little bit more height on this one so that the disc can access that glide even in a tailwind, and it works out pretty well for me as well. Thanks for watching Physics of Flight 2. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about shot shapes and how to play in the wind and how to take it to the course. If you're looking for more information on the technique side of things, you can check out the first Physics of Flight on the Dynamic Disc YouTube channel, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one.